Dominaria United is upon us. We have combed through all of the cards in the set and compiled a list of 15 that we really like for Commander.
We're going to talk about the best possible Commander cards in the set. Let's get into the top Commander cards from Dominaria United. Highest level of gratitude to our patrons who power the channel through Patreon. Check out the Patreon link in the description to learn about monthly giveaways, VIP Discord access, and even our official playmat. Hello and welcome to the day.
Thank you for spending your time with us.
I'm Kevin Malone.
I'm Josh Hartnett. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. We are going over Dominaria United Commander cards. If you like the video by the end of it, think about hitting that like button and that subscribe button. It really helps us out.
It's a great way to support the channel with just the click of a button. If you want to get involved on a deeper level, go and check out Patreon. We also, in the pinned comment of this video, do have a link, our TCG affiliate link. If you decide to use it, helps out the channel and it costs you a big fat nothing. So if you do need to buy some Dominaria United singles, use that link, help us out, help us get to full time. Let's talk about some Commander cards. We have 15 cards to talk about today, and they are pretty sweet Commander staples. There are some really good Commander cards in Dominaria United.
Let's take a look. All right, Jake, we're going in color order and then multicolor and then colorless. So we're starting with Temporary Lockdown. A white, and one other for an enchantment that says it ETBs and exiles each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less until Temporary Lockdown leaves the battlefield. Jake, I have never seen a more fun thing to play when you get 3 opponents who've all gone super degenerate on you in the opening turns. Signet. Dude, yeah, Soul Ring, Signet. Oh, I played a Mox. Here's a, I've got all my fast mana going. You go Temporary Lockdown. Pass.
And you say, let's slow things down just a little bit. We've got really a nice dirtily stacksy white card here.
I wonder if it's getting discussed for CEDH because it's got to hit quite a few of the permanents. And that's the thing, non-land permanent, not just creatures or artifacts, whatever. It's everything that's not a land. I really do think that card is pretty kick-ass.
I like this alongside something that could, potentially give it flash, which is just even crazier. It's a very strong card, especially at 3 mana as well. The ability at 3 mana is it's pretty immense. 2 blue, 1 other here for Hottie Gin. Star and 4 flying. Hottie Gin's power is equal to the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard, and then it has a Goblin Electromancer effect on it, where instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. It's just redundancy on this effect that's already a thing. And what's cool is it's less color restrictive. It goes in more stuff.
Right, yeah, exactly. Goblin Electromancer is a played card. Lots of people have that in their decks, and Hottie Gin is that plus upside. It's a flying attacker, potentially, especially late game, get 5 to 10 instants and sorceries in there. That's not out of the question. And you've got an attacker that's not like Goblin Electromancer, just a bear after its cost reduction. I really do think that this has got some legs.
It's a Rune Chanter's Pike on a stick. That's what he is. Yeah. So give it a Rune Chanter's Pike and really go all the way to the moon, right? I mean, if you have a bunch of instant and sorceries in your yard, just throw a Pike on it and you're having a really fun time just killing one player a turn.
This set brought us a lot of tribal love, but one card in particular that is very tribal, we'll admit, caught our eye, and that's Shadowrite Priest. 2 mana for a 2/2 human cleric. Other clerics you control get +1/+1. Fine. We're not playing this for a cleric anthem. We're playing this for a 5 mana activated ability. Sack a cleric, search your library for a black creature card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle.
Yeah, dude. I actually, it goes right into the Shadowborn Apostle deck, like 1,000,000% made for that deck. But yeah, it's very specific, goes in clerics. However, if you are playing changelings, keep that in mind, because changelings are everything. So, sacrifice something off of Maskwood Nexus, go get your Shieldred, go get your whatever big black creature. I think there's ways to get around it, which are kind of cool. But yeah, it definitely goes in clerics. It might go in some other shenanigans, but it does get better and better the more cards that are printed, right? The more clerics that come out, the more big black beastly demons that come into the game, card gets better and better.
Yeah, absolutely it does. Stronghold Arena's up next.
Yeah, 1 black, 1 other here for an enchantment, and it does have kicker for green and white. You may pay an additional green and or white as you cast a spell, and when it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life for each time it was kicked. But what really matters on the card, whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you may, big may there, reveal the top card of your library and put it into your hand. If you do, you lose life equal to its mana value. So clearly you don't do that if you're on the ropes and you're gonna die. You don't want the Dark Confidant effect, then opt out of it.
Yeah, 2 mana for this is pretty great. Obviously, it's got to go in decks that are Abzan or more colors, just because of its color identity here. But, you know, not even caring about the kicker, just eliminating the top half of the text box here. I think a 2 mana enchantment in some sort of Abzan aggressive go wide strategy. There's a lot of Abzan counter decks that run around like crazy, create a bunch of creature tokens, put a bunch of +1/+1 counters on them and go to town. I think that this has legs in a deck like that.
Yeah, dude, I think the card's strong. I think it has some upside. Again, that May is what makes me really like the card. You know, you don't want this effect late game, especially if you're about to die. So, you know, being able to choose is a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely it is. After that, we've got Defiler of Vigor. We got a whole cycle of these Defilers, but in particular, we really like this green one. 2 green, 3 other for 6/6 Trampler, so already above rate on that, which is awesome. As an additional cost to cast green permanent spells, you may pay 2 life. Those spells cost 1 green less to cast if you paid life. This way, it reduces only the amount of green mana you pay. So you can do that once per cast of green permanent. Defiler of Vigor, that ability reduces any green permanents that you cast by 1 green mana, turning it into a green Phyrexian mana, basically, so that you can pay 2 life and reduce. So not nothing. It's not huge, but it's not nothing. But this last ability, whenever you cast a green permanent spell, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. This doesn't say they get +1/+1 till end of turn. It says they get a +1/+1 counter. It's permanent. This is ridiculous to me.
Yeah, it's pretty strong. And if you have any kind of proliferation or anything like that, it's going to get that much better.
Doubling season,
yeah, I mean,
right.
It's very good. Yeah, doubling season, parallel lives, whatever. Yeah, it's a very, very strong card. And yeah, I think that people are going to ride it to victory. I mean, it's already good as a 6/6 Trampler for 5. I mean, I guess that's uncommon by MTG standards these days, right?
Nowadays, Commander doesn't want a 5 mana 6/6 Trampler. They're like, it doesn't do enough.
Reducing is a big deal, though. Being able to pay life as an alternate cost, that's going to fix your mana in certain situations. So I think, you know, this card is doing a lot of stuff. It's got counter synergy, which we already know is very strong, like you said. And then we have a Phyrexian mana pseudo effect going on here, which is pretty strong, too. Next, we have Silverback Elder. And for 3 green and 2 other, we're getting a 5/7 Ape Shaman. Whenever you cast a creature spell, choose 1.
Cast.
Got a naturalize on there, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Or you can look at the top 5 cards of the library. You may put a land card from among them onto the battlefield, so it's got some ramp in there.
Straight onto the battlefield. Ridiculous.
So strong. Or gain life. If you need to gain life, you know, it's got the 4 life in there, which...
Don't care so much about that mode.
It's not a bad chunk of life, though. It's got some good life. So you got some ramp in here. You have a naturalize, which sometimes when you're building an EDH deck, it's hard to fit the naturalize in. It's like you have spells that can work as a naturalize, but sometimes it's like specifically naturalize. That sometimes gets cut. So having it on a big beastly creature with some versatility, that's not bad.
Green decks already run creatures that say when you cast a creature, draw a card, stuff like that. So this just seems like a 5 mana version of that, except it's an aura shards, destroying an artifact or an enchantment. Anytime you cast a creature spell, it doesn't even have to enter the battlefield. Yep. I think that top mode is what you're going to use the most. There's never a, you know, there's always an abundance of artifacts and enchantments on your opponent's boards. And so that is what I would want to be keeping down as much as possible every time I'm dropping another creature onto the battlefield. Fairly mana restrictive at 3 green pips. You're going to want to look for like 2 color. Obviously monocolor would be great, but like 2 color, 3 color max. You don't really want this in like a 4 or 5 color deck, most likely, unless you're doing something funky like cheating creatures out. But yeah, I mean, just having a mana ramp on the on the second mode as an additional option to firing off naturalizes on every single creature cast. I think this Silverback Elder will see play.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty cool card. It's not too much mana either, especially in EDH. You know, you could get to 5 mana in green super fast, and then you're just benefiting from every creature cast. It seems strong. It seems strong.
Yeah, absolutely. Threats Undetected is a fun tutor spell. Sort of like Intuition is what I equate it to. They get shuffled back into the library at the end, but a green and 2 other for a sorcery speed. Search your library for up to 4 creature cards with different powers and reveal them. An opponent chooses 2 of those cards. You shuffle the chosen into your library and you put the other 2 into your hand. So you can search up 4 redundant creatures that all do the exact thing that you need. If you're playing this on like turn 1 because you ramped it up and you got 3 mana and a green ready to go, you can go get, you know, a Bird of Paradise, a Landwar Elf, Fabro Elder, you know, go get and some other your 4th mana dork. So you're guaranteed 2 of your mana dorks, you know, and that's just like a really boring early use to make sure you hit your ramp. Go get, you know, an Enraged Forerunner and Pathbreaker Ebex and, you know, any of your... Give all your creatures +X and trample.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Just have that redundancy. There's so many ways, and that's why I think Intuition holds such a high price on top of it being reserve list, is that just build redundancy into this choice for your opponents and you're in the money.
Yeah, just go grab 4 different beefy end game threats.
Right.
You know, like for 3 mana, just go get 2 of your best possible cards that you're going to want later. I mean, why not? I mean, and that's like the worst use for the card is just like, well, I've got nothing to do.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
go search up 4 Eldrazi and let them choose which Eldrazi's I get.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I think the card is very strong, especially it's a tutor at 3 mana and you're getting 4 things. If you have other tutor built into the deck, you know, just put combo pieces in there. People might not even know which cards are your combo pieces. Then you go tutor up the other combo piece with one of your tutors and now you're winning the game. So yeah, I think the card is really cool. I think, you know, a low to the ground tutor is always worth considering.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next up, Versatility, Dimir Versatility. And if you couldn't tell by the arms, we're going to have a lot of choices here. 1 blue, 1 black, 2 other for a 3/2. Urtai Resurrected. It has Flash, which we all love Flash. It's the most degenerate freaking ability ever. When it enters the battlefield, choose up to 1 counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. Its controller draws a card. Or destroy another target creature or planeswalker. Its controller draws a card. What's nice is it's a salty card, but they put that card draw in there so that when you do it to somebody, they at least feel at least a little okay about it, right?
For sure, but I'm definitely running Narset Parter of Veils alongside this, and I'm like, destroy that creature, fuck your card draw.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I like the card. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of this card, Deadeye Navigator. But you can pair it with Deadeye Navigator, and now you're just living the dream. Anytime somebody does anything, just blink it, and Urtai is right back to ruin the day.
Yeah, I think that some people are a little low on this card. I included this in my 3 different commanders builds for Dominaria United. Make sure you go check out that video. Talked about this commander at length, exactly how I would build this deck.
We'll put a link above if you want to check that video out.
It's just so salty and so mean. It was the mean one in the Strong Fun Mean video. I really am a fan of this. I really do think it's really good. As is Joyra. This is also one that I included in that deck build video of 3 brand new decks from Dominaria United and how I would build them. Joyra was my strong option, a red and a blue for a 2/3 human artificer. Put 2 ingenuity counters on Joyra Ageless Innovator, then you may put an artifact card with mana value X or less from your hand onto the battlefield, where X is the number of ingenuity counters on Joyra. So Joyra's in blue, so you can already proliferate those counters up and get really big artifacts onto the battlefield for free really quickly. She's in the right colors to run things like Freed from the Reel or Retreat to Coral Helm and untap her to be able to use her ability going up by 2 counters every single time, by the way, multiple times in 1 turn. Artifacts is already strong. Lots of eggs types artifacts in that. So you can have a card enter the battlefield, draw you a card, bounce it back to your hand, put it back onto the battlefield for free, etc., etc. There's just a lot of absolutely degenerate stuff that I think a very smart deck builder is going to be able to figure out with Joyra and make this a top tier deck.
Yeah, you just need ways to protect it, like a Lightning Greaves, or
which
in your
fits
video
into the
you
strategy.
mentioned, yeah, Swiftfoot Boots, because you want to make sure that those ingenuity counters aren't getting reset. You know, that's the big thing, is like you want to, that's where this card falls short. But whenever you have a commander that's super low to the ground like this, we have a 2 mana value commander, 2/3. It's definitely worth tinkering with, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's gonna go places.
Next up, we have a nice Voltron commander. This card is pretty sweet. 3/3 here for 1 blue, 1 white, and 1 green. It's Shauna Purifying Blade. It has lifelink, so it has everything it needs to do this. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay X. And if you do draw X cards, X can't be greater than the amount of life you gain this turn. So say you swing through with your 3/3, hit them for 3, you can pay up to 3, and then draw that many cards. So what's cool about a commander like this is you can run less card draw in the 99. It's built into the commander, which means that's going to free up some slots for you to make sure that, you know, you can make sure it's unblockable, for example. Make sure that it is protected. Lightning Greaves, Swiftfoot Boots, a Whisper Silk Cloak, something like that. Make sure that it gets through so you can gain life, draw cards, and continue drawing through your deck, because velocity wins games.
Yeah, 100%. Shauna also represents a passive ability on the card, and so you can play Shauna like an enchantment. You don't have to be attacking with Shauna. It's not like straight up, this is only a Voltron commander.
That's true.
A Bant lifelink, life gain deck, and then have Shauna be a passive, like you said, card draw enchantment on the battlefield. You know, I like when a card like that can have 2 different strategies built to it, because you know all the stuff that you would put into your deck to make Shauna potentially a Voltron deck will also work really well on the other strong creatures in your deck, especially if they've all got lifelink and everything's contributing to this synergy of, I just have card advantage out of the command zone. That's how I built this deck. And so I really like the versatility here too.
I like building it as an enchantment. That's a good point. Being able to reliably cast something that is your draw engine in a life gain strategy is really sweet. Yeah, just passively gain life, draw cards, kill them with a freaking Aetherflux Reservoir or something. Right. Or yeah, pretty sweet.
Golden Argosy is up next, and I think this might be one of the more controversials. Let us know down in the comments if you think this has got legs, but we're going to explain to you what we like about it. 4 mana, 3/6 vehicle. It's got a crew of 1, so anything short of a bird of paradise is crewing this. Whenever Golden Argosy attacks, exile each creature that crewed it this turn. Return them to the battlefield tapped under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. I mean, all I gotta say here is crew with Eternal Witness, attack with Golden Argosy.
Crew with anything with a good enters the battlefield ability. That's pretty much it. And what's really nice about this card is swing at the person who has, you know, it does have a 6 toughness, so just make sure you swing at somebody where it can get through, and you're going to get the most out of, say,
or
your
at least
Wisp.
bump.
Yeah, at least bump. But all you have to do is attack with the card to get the ability off of it. And what else is cool about it is it slots into anything. It can go in any deck. It's colorless. But yeah, this is just such a fun card for redundancy in ETB type situations. And I think it being colorless, slotting into anything, it's going to give it application. And I think people are going to be able to find a spot for it. I think it's really fun, and I can't wait to play with it.
Yeah, ETBs are always going to be strong in EDH. How about an ETB tapped? That means you know it's going to have some very positive ability on the other side of it. Carne Silex. Oof.
Yeah, 3 mana for a legendary artifact. Carne Silex enters the battlefield tapped. Players can't pay life to cast spells or to activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. And then for X, you can tap it, and Carne Silex destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X or less, activate only as a sorcery, but you do have to exile the Silex in order to do that ability. However, this is really good. Again, we were just talking about in the previous card how that card has application in any color. So does Carne Silex. So colors that specifically don't destroy typically, think like red, blue. This is a card for decks like that need that effect.
Or
it's like a Niven Ural's Dusk in a way.
Right, it's Niven Ural's Disc, except it shuts off fetch lands. It cuts off entire commanders like Yawgmoth, right? It doesn't let you pay life to do things. So any commander where that is part of what you want to be doing, Yawgmoth's Son, Crick, you know, it seems to do so much to me. It's a mythic, and I think that it'll have application outside of Commander. And so I'm interested to see where the price of this one goes in the future and see if I'm right about it.
It's pretty versatile.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly. Just I think it's one of the strongest cards printed into the set overall, even though it is kind of that boring effect, right? It's just wiping the board and it's preventing people from doing things. It's not some big splashy awesome creature. But I do think that it is incredibly powerful in the right deck.
I mean, the board wipe almost seems secondary, right?
That's what I'm saying.
The board wipe is almost like that's like the whatever thing that you can do. I mean, players can't pay life to cast spells or to activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. That's a pretty big deal. That's a pretty big deal. Pretty big passive stacks type effect.
Super powerful line of text. Weatherlight Completed is a card we've talked about on the channel, but we wanted to include it in this because we let some more specific cards sneak into the list this time. Generally, we try and aim at cards that are like, oh, this will go really well in most black decks, most green decks, etc. With Weatherlight Completed, this is for aristocrats. Whenever a creature you control dies, put a Pheresis counter on it, then draw a card if it has 7 or more Pheresis counters on it. If it doesn't, scry 1. If it has 4 counters on it, it is a creature and then can start attacking through as a creature. But honestly, I don't even want it to do that because then that means that, Wrath of God hits it. I want that whenever a creature you control dies, put a counter on it and draw a card. And if you've got 7 and if it doesn't, you get to scry all the way up to it. That just seems really powerful to me for 2 mana.
It's a lot of velocity on 2 mana. And yeah, it's built for aristocrats, but I think there's going to be other decks that want it as well. The previous 2 cards we talked about had application in any color. This card is not an exception. You can put this in any deck that you want. But yeah, it's really going to thrive, in my opinion, in a black deck or a sacrifice deck where you're going to have a lot of die triggers going on to really get the most out of the card. But yeah, I think it's very strong. I think that the fact that it does become a creature later is kind of cool. I think that the lore behind the card is pretty sweet as well. Just how it became this is really interesting. But yeah, I think it's one of the best cards in the set too. I think it's just an artifact that sits on the battlefield and draws you cards. It's funny how some of the best cards in MTG just get you more cards. You're just they're just draw spells. They're just things that are drawing through your deck, making sure, that scry is a big deal too. Being able to rearrange and make sure that you get through the deck it's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next up, we have Plaza of Heroes, and this is a fun land that won't go in every deck, but for tap, you can get colorless or wastes, or you can tap and add 1 mana of any color, spend this mana only to cast a legendary spell, or you could tap, add 1 mana of any color among legendary permanents you control. It's pretty sweet. Or for 3 and tap, you can exile Plaza of Heroes and target legendary creature gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Essentially a heroic intervention on a land. So yeah, the less flex slots you have in your land or your mana base, you're not going to be able to run this. So if you're like 3 color, 4 color, 5 color, you're probably not going to have a lot of room for an effect like this because you have to prioritize making sure that you're able to get your colors.
Right.
But yeah, for in my opinion, I think the card's pretty cool. I hate that it exiles it. I wish you could get it back, but that's probably just a little bit too much. It's just an oh shit button. It's a one-time oh shit button on a land that allows you to keep your commander around.
Yeah.
Most likely when it matters most. Yeah.
Too degenerate if it didn't exile itself. Obviously, any Legendary Matters deck is going to run this. This is going to be in there because you will be adding much more mana of really any color you want if you've got legendary permanents on the battlefield, because it only checks for legendary permanents, not legendary creatures specifically, so you can kind of help yourself out there. It's always going to, in any deck, help you cast your commander. It's going to fix perfectly on any color in your commander, so we can make sure that that's always going to happen. And yeah, like Jake said, it's a one-time heroic intervention just for your commander at the very least. I think that this card is probably overhyped right now. I'd wait a little bit to pick this one up. I believe the price will die down as people realize, oh, this isn't another command tower, right? This isn't going in every single commander deck regardless, but I do think it'll find a lot of homes, if not every single home, you know?
If it keeps your commander around, or a big legendary that you have in the 99 around, something like that, then yeah, I mean, I think that this card, it's better to have it, not need it, than need it and not have it. That's how I feel about it. So if you do have the room in the deck, I think it's worth testing. I think it's worth playing. I can't see a situation where you're going to be like, well, I hate being able to sacrifice this land and give that thing indestructible if I need to. That just doesn't seem like a line of thought that I would have if I had this on the battlefield. It seems really good.
Those are our picks for commander cards from Dominaria United. Get down there in the comments and tell us how we did.
This has been a fun one, man. There's some good cards in this set. I think that there's some fun stuff that I'm interested to try. Joel, what are your thoughts?
I want people to go down and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and maybe go watch another video of ours.
That would be great. And again, if you're doing any sort of shopping, use our TCG affiliate link that you can find in the pinned comment section of the video if your FOMO is just too great.